Doctors, patients don't like this method of billing. I don't know, patients really hate surprise medical bills. Just as anyone, of course, you as a medical personnel, or you as a doctor, you as anyone at the hospital that's responsible for charging up and causing all the thing. Of course, this is the method. This is a message to you. Patients told me this. They really hate the surprise medical bills. They really hate paying things out of the blue, and then they fall into they come. It's just like an emergency. Of course, they want their patients out, and maybe they want to go out or to be discharged and what after getting better and everything, but from nowhere the bill that they're being charged is really overwhelming. They never knew it, they never saw it coming. It's really so huge, just as being struck by thunder. You get, so you come from nowhere like, this is the bill that you're supposed to pay. Oh my god, it was so overwhelming. So this is the story of some guy. I was seated just in the hospital compound, and I was chilling on my scrubs, just as you can see. So the guy came up around, maybe spotted that probably I was a medical personnel, because I was putting on scrubs and I had my tags and what, all things that could identify me as a medical personnel or as a doctor. But he was trying to explain to me all these things and what. So the first thing I told him, man, I'm not so much concerned with this thing. I'm not a big person here, but I'm just a medical student, and all you can tell me, maybe you can just continue telling me your story. Probably I'll share it with my viewers and with my people that actually listen to me somehow. So this guy continued now to narrate his story, and was telling me he had a sick mother whom he rushed to hospital, but it was really overwhelming. Of course, everything was done. The doctors did their part well, and they managed their patient, they managed the mother, and now the mother's condition had become fair. At least it was good, you get. But the guy was charged something that actually he couldn't expect. It was a shock to him, it was like thunder, you get. So they couldn't actually, to an extent that he was so confused. He never knew what to do. Of course, someone coming to you and then finding, seeing you there from nowhere, and then starts narrating a story, and in story from a personal story, it's really hard. If someone is not your friend, just narrating something to a stranger, you can actually just relate to how overwhelmed this guy was. And it was really so worse to an extent that maybe he was planning to just first leave the mother to hospital and then go find out other ways to get this money before he comes and then clears. But now guess what? Where could he get all this money? How could he even charge it? And maybe how could he even do all the things? He's a guy, he was I think around in his 20s, 23, but based on the looks and what, he wasn't that much, someone who probably never had a job, or even never had other people to help him out, you get, the rich friends and what. So this guy, in simple terms, was really vulnerable to the condition. So he was being squeezed silently, couldn't even share anything with anyone, you get. So he just came to me, and then he was telling me all those things. But guys, why is it so hard to be as as transparent as possible in the course? Of course, this thing can be solved in one way or the other. Of course, to avoid all these surprise medical bills, to avoid doing someone bad, maybe making them sell the simple property that they have, and those things. So they are concerned so much about how this cost of treatment and how it's done. Why is it so hard to pin up the prices for everything that you're supposed to do, and then maybe we do cessation, this is the bill that we pay for that. Maybe if this is the condition, using the blue books, of course, you can list out the conditions that you can manage in that hospital or a clinic and what. Then you list up all the things that actually that are done, and then the estimated prices based on the condition. Of course, patients are not the same. I know that, we manage patients on an individual basis, but you give a rough estimate of what actually you can calculate, and then someone knows that this costs this. If at all I'm to do a CT scan from here, it costs this amount of money. If at all I'm to do an X-ray, it costs this amount of money. If certain lab investigation, maybe I want to check on the electrolytes and what, so I know this is the amount of money. Maybe a cesarean section or what, this is the amount of money that actually I'm concerned with, or I'm supposed to pay. And then you pin it on a notes board, or you even put just even a simple paper, you get, and then you put it everywhere, so anyone that comes in can really have access to this. Or even a blue book, you make a book that actually lists all these things at once, and then you give them to someone that is concerned, and then shows the patient surgeon. Someone goes into the procedure when they are knowing that this is the amount I'm supposed to pay. If they can't manage, maybe that you give them options. If they can't still manage the options, then they find somewhere else. But of course, I believe that maybe when someone is given an option, they can actually try to accommodate the options that have been given, and then they make a decision on what they are supposed to do, and what actually they are supposed to pay. But unfortunately, we end up just bumping and then doing our own things on our side, but we don't even consider at times maybe the pockets of the patient. We call it the blanket sign. Blanket sign might be completely negative, and then you're just giving and then charging this guy a bill and what. So it really looks weird, you get. Though at times actually most people feel it, most doctors don't really love asking the patient that, will you manage this, and of course some people feel irritated that maybe when they're asked whether they could manage, it's like another form of being undermined or being underrated or being judged in one or the other. But I don't feel like that's the real thing. It's not that maybe you're being judged, but it's actually to help out, because people come and are in different situations. Of course, this is a medical bills and medical, this is an emergency. Of course, I don't feel like a number of people, actually let me say 80% of people, if I told you not under insurance or what, it's very rare actually for people to really prepare for medical emergencies and what, or like when you're paying out of pocket, you get. So in most cases, that's why we need to ask, and then we need to understand the patient's financial condition before we do another thing, before we charge up, before we do all the things. But actually, that's the message they send me to tell you guys. Hope you will consider it, guys. All right, don't forget to watch up all these videos. But guys, just know I was really touched by this guy's story.